Hello, and welcome back to the Rawkode Academy. I'm your host, David Flanagan, also known across the internet as Rawkode. And today is an episode of Rawkode Live, the show where we take a look at all the latest and greatest open source cloud native projects. And today is no exception. We are taking a look at a project called Preq, as you may have gathered from the intro music. It's going to help us build and run more reliable software. And our guest and host for today is Tony Meehan. Hey man, how's it going?
Listen, I don't think I'm blown away by that song. I think we should just put that on a loop and make that the live stream. It's incredible. I'm doing great. This was that was amazing. That was hilarious. That was awesome.
Should we just quit while we're ahead?
I mean, that was amazing. We should just listen to that.
AI today in 2025, what a time. Like the fact that that song can be put together and I don't even need to know how to play a guitar or anything is amazing. So.
It's a real band. No, it's a real band. That's the community put that together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Cool.
No, it's awesome to be here. Your podcast is amazing. We were just talking earlier about the Wasm podcast you did a couple of days ago or weeks ago. It was awesome to be here. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. So for anyone who's not familiar with you and your work, please take a little bit of time just to say hello and tell them what you've been up to.
Yeah, so my name is Tony. I'm a CTO at a company called Preq and a maintainer of a tool called Preq. Quick background from me is I spent my first 10 years of my career doing vulnerability and exploit development here in the U.S. at a place called the National Security Agency. So I loved working there. The mission was really fun, really humbling experience. You jump into the deep end, and it's a very hard job, but a fun mission. But I don't know if this is known widely, but the government can sometimes be this big bureaucratic organization that moves slow sometimes. So I ended up leaving in 2014 to join a startup. So the opposite end of the spectrum. And it was a company called Endgame, where we were building an endpoint security product. So I was there for a while as VP of engineering, and we ended up selling that business to a company called Elastic, the makers of Kibana and Elasticsearch, really big in open source. And that's kind of how I got my first introduction into working with open source communities. So I was there for quite a while doing a VP of engineering, but I still would find every excuse to cancel a meeting, go jump on an incident or an outage to go chase the bug. I think it was probably chasing the first 10 years of my career, and I've always sort of been haunted by problems in software and bugs, and curious to understand. I think the best way to understand software is when it breaks, and so we ended up building a product to kind of help practitioners, engineers figure out when their software breaks, and that's how we ended up on Preq.
Awesome. Lots to love there. I'll skip over the government bit, right? Okay. But, working in security is obviously going to teach you a lot. Working with bugs, of course. I love that you mentioned that, software does break and people are human and people introduce bugs every single day and things go wrong. And one of my shows called Clustered that I haven't done in a long time, but I'd love to bring it back. People always said, the breaks are too contrived. And the premise of the show was live debugging. And I'm like, yeah, but people shouldn't have to know this stuff. But when you do, right? And it's like when things go wrong, when things are broken, when shit really hits the fan, that is when you learn all these little tiny nuggets of knowledge that you would never learn under any book or other circumstance than when things are on fire. And I think that is a great way. And people should embrace failures and bugs and all of this stuff. But we have this... Not that I want to try and solve software engineering as a community or anything, right? But there's a stigma and we need to kind of get past that and be vulnerable and be willing to make mistakes in public. And yeah, I wish more people would do that. Anyway.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree.
That's why I think it's really cool that we're taking a look at Preq by Preq, founded by yourself on this show. So what is Preq?
Yeah, I guess there's, the short version is... if you've ever written software or even used it, and this could be SaaS software or it could be Ubuntu, whatever it is, like we just said, it inevitably breaks. And all too often, especially if you're a maintainer or engineer that has to support that software, or even if you're in customer success and you've got a bunch of known issues with older versions of software, when it breaks, you often go on this hunt and you're looking through all of this data, and you start with your investigation. Hours, sometimes days later, you'll end up like, oh, here's a known issue with a bunch of other people that have run into the same thing. And here's what they did to fix it. And oh, let me try that. Okay, cool, that fixed it. Now let me put a detection in place. And that, I don't like that world. That world's not fun to live in. I mean, look, I love doing investigations. I love it when software breaks, but it's always that bittersweet moment whenever you find that issue that other people have seen. And I think Preq is sort of our our vision is to kind of create a world where if someone in the world has seen this problem before, that should be the last time. That first time should be the last time, and then we should start with that detection and share that knowledge. Kind of, we call it reliability intelligence, common reliability enumerations. But I think that's the goal of Preq, is how do you come up with a way where you can start with a detection first that actually shows you the problem and the mitigation. Like, here's what the rest of the community has done when they've seen this problem.
Yeah, I love that. You are building a library, a collective knowledge, if you will, of things that go wrong in software and allowing people to detect that early up front. A shift left, if you want to throw in the corporate buzzword, right? That is a good mission, a very noble mission indeed.
Yeah, so what gave you? Sorry, I was just gonna say it's sort of a new idea in reliability, but it's also an approach that has worked really well in security for 20 years, because it was a similar situation in the early 2000s where you would have individuals chasing problems, but those problems were security problems, and then eventually tools were created to share that knowledge and to allow that one person to benefit from that community knowledge, and that's kind of the same principle here.
So let's rewind it back to the beginning, right? You've done your government job, you decided to go do something different, you ended up at Elastic, you're doing open source, and then you were like, you know what, I'm going to start my own company. Like, was this your first idea? Why did you have this idea? Like, what is the history behind this project?
Yeah. Good question. So it's definitely a scary prospect to start, your own thing, but it was sort of a problem that we couldn't escape. So my co-founder and I, Lyndon Brown, both we met at Endgame, and like I said earlier, like, software failure is just an inevitable thing that happens when you're building a software product. It's just going to happen. And again, it was just always this like bittersweet moment when we would have a customer issue or an outage, and we found that here's this known issue in this version of this message queue you're using. And I was like, cool, we found it, but also what a bummer that like people in the community have known about this for so long. It just sort of nagged us. Like, I think I ended up writing a blog in like 2017 about this, where we had this customer outage that lasted a week, and we found the issue. It was a known issue that had been discovered in the community about 3 months prior to that. And it was just always like, how do you start with the detection first? Because today you kind of have to start with your investigation. A customer tells you there's an outage, or there's some metric threshold that's ringing an alarm, and you have to start with your investigation. So I think it's just something that we couldn't escape, and the problem kind of chased us. And with some of the recent technologies like eBPF, and sort of some of the lessons that we learned building an endpoint security product, we kind of thought maybe there's a different approach that we could take and take some of the lessons that we learned in security and bring them to reliability.
Nice. All right, before we get hands-on then, who is this for, right? Is this for every single developer? Is it going to make their lives easier? Is it for Rust developers, Go developers, PHP developers? Like, who is Prequel's ideal audience? Who should be paying attention right now?
Yeah, very, very good question. So I think there's some obvious answers. If you've ever had to wear a pager and get called in whenever something breaks, that's definitely, and this could be someone in an SRE team or customer success. If you've had to go out and debug a product that your company is, providing, and there's a bunch of known issues, I think this is definitely a tool. Preq can help you, and Common Reliability Enumerations can help you. But I actually think the world is also a little bit bigger than that too. So if you're a developer that's building your own application that's being hosted, and you want to have some proactive detections for common problems that especially older versions could run across, this is definitely something that those engineers could use. And I'll even say, like, look, I've been a Linux user for a long time. I love Linux, but like every once in a while, like, it's just stuff breaks. And like if you upgrade to like the latest version of something, like your NVIDIA driver doesn't work. And so I actually think there's a cool opportunity for if you've got some known issues in like your Mac OS laptop or your Ubuntu box, instead of hunting and spelunking through all of the like customer support message boards, there's like an opportunity to do something there too.
Awesome. Are you running Linux right now?
I am, and it's a bold move, and we'll see how it goes.
What distro?
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
I've been a FreeBSD user, KDE, I've used that, but you can't. Ubuntu's fine.
All right. Well, I'll give you the fear. Aman in the chat is an Arch user. Me too, by
Oh,
the way.
I know your reputation precedes you. I'm aware.
Uh, I love Nixos, and I run it on my laptop because I never have to stream from it, and it's not a problem. But I've had so many issues on a stream where someone's like, "Oh, just download my binary," and I'm like, "Mate, come on." I'm running Nix. I can't do dynamic linking, and then it ends up it's a horrible stream. So now I use Arch specifically just for this rig, but I have recently moved away from running GNOME or KDE, and I'm on like a weird Wayland Thailand thing. And all I'm going to say is, if I disappear, it's not intentional. And
okay, no, I get it.
Things could happen. So with Linux, you never know, like you said. So
you could tell the rest of the people on my team too when that happens to me. Like, hey, I'm not the only one. It happens to all of us. We're daring. Yeah. We're bold.
I love it when someone sends me a Zoom link, and I'm like, I mean, I can try. I mean,
we'll see how it goes.
The desktop app never worked in the last 6 months, but maybe today's a day. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Well, Russell's in the chat. I love the first time I mentioned clustered in months, and Russell just pops in the chat. And also, I happen to be wearing the clustered T-shirt today. It's something I think is telling me that clustered needs to come back. So,
well, I'm embarrassed to admit I don't actually know what clustered is. What is that?
It's the show where I provision 2 handcrafted artisanal bare metal Kubernetes clusters and then give them to people and say, "Do your worst," and they break them, and then we fix them.
Oh, and you haven't done this in a while. You definitely have to bring this back.
Yeah, we did like 60 episodes, but then it just I quit my job and started the Rawkode Academy full time in September 22. And funnily enough, since it happened, clustered hasn't happened, and I wonder if there's a correlation.
I don't know.
Building a company is hard, so
That's cool. That's cool though. That's awesome.
All right, let's get some terminals on the screen. So let's see, where's my screen share? So I'm going to kick things off today, hopefully, Linux and all. But what I have here is not my screen. Let's try it again. There we go. I have the Prequel website, so it's available at prequel.dev. We could go to features, we could click on open source. As always with Rawkode Live, we're going to go straight to the docs and look for the wonderful Getting Started button, which we can already see. I don't have anything else prepared, except for my new shell. I don't have Preq installed, so we are starting from complete zero.
What is your weird shell, by the way? I saw that you don't use bash, right? What are you using?
New shell. So it's a shell written in Rust.
Okay.
Written in Rust may be a common thing you hear me say throughout all of my sessions. What I love about it is every command is a data frame. So when you run ls, this is actually a data frame where you can then see, well, where the size is greater than or equal to like 1 megabyte and stuff. So that was a terrible example because I don't have any files, but let's go with 400 bytes.
That's cool.
And then you can actually like get it as a table or a grid, and like I'm not going to go into new shell right now, but it's a very cool shell. Cool. The only downside is nothing works like the way you expect, so you have to like relearn how to do everything. Like even accessing the environment is like,
that's probably not going to go well for me. I've been using Vim forever, and I still only know like 4 commands, and it's like 30 years of using it. It's not good.
All right. Let's get this installed. So I can see here we've got some sort of terminal CLI, and we're just going to download this and run. I mean, I see wget right away, and I'm like, why? Like curl exists. Why wget?
That's fair. And as you go on, you'll see we ended up moving over to curl in our docs. We weren't consistent, and I will definitely change this to curl, but the rest of it, we do eventually switch over. I happen to know the wget developer, though, the wget 2 especially. So, I got to give them both love.
I mean, wget is curl is just a de facto, right? I mean, I love the author of it, Daniel. I can't remember your surname, sorry. But the fact that he's got credits in like every car in the world, and even movie credits and stuff, because curl is just so ubiquitous. It's so cool.
Wait, you say movie credits?
Yeah, because they use curl on making movies now. So if it's like some of the movies, you can just go to the end of it, and there's like this, he's in it, and it's like weird.
So you're telling me if I can get someone in a movie to use Preq, we're going to get credits? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's the way it runs, right?
That's pretty cool. All right. Today I learned.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to chmod right X. I don't think the docs say that yet, but I'm just going to assume I've done my tar. and then you want me to stick it somewhere I can
Exactly,
run it? That probably makes sense. All right. Okay, so run 0, move preek. I mean, I could stick it somewhere else, but
okay. So, all right, run 0. Look, I thought I knew stuff, but what is it a new thing, or is that what am I looking at? What's run 0?
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be focusing on preek today. Come on,
I know,
focus.
and we will. Trust me. They can go to Preq, give it a star. Okay, what is run 0?
So you know how sudo works, right? Is that they have a set UID bit of 1, which means it's really insecure. So run 0 was what's your name? Pottering, system D guy. Anyway, he basically wrote his own privilege escalation or elevation, whatever you want to call it, tool, which is part of system D called run 0 that then runs through the system D stack to elevate my privileges,
cool.
and it's super secure. So I'm now just trying to use it as much as possible.
That's cool. Well, another today I learned. This is great.
Exec
This is awesome.
before I use sudo as well, which is polkit exec. So I'm just trying to. I don't have a job. I just sit and play with tech all day, so I get to experiment.
Well, listen, this is why people watch the podcast. You're going to learn stuff. This is great. This is awesome.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, I'm assuming I'm not done your sortie bash nonsense, right? But I could probably use that. All right. Cool. We'll scroll down. We've got the ability to verify. So this is going to run the checksum. I should probably have done that before I stuck it in my user local bin, but that's fine. And
I'm here. Yeah. You can yell at me if it's insecure. Yeah.
I mean, where did I download it from? GitHub releases. Yeah, we're good. Unless someone's broken into your CI/CD pipeline, we should be okay. You also have a Kubernetes plugin that requires me to have crew installed, which I can do. I don't know. Does the getting started guide require Kubernetes? Should I get this ready?
No, no need. Yeah.
I like crew, but I just use kube control standard stuff for everything because it works everywhere. So, all right. All right, we've done the boarding bit. Let's go to running. So from here, we are going to get a demo application. So now it's Carl.
Yeah. See, we switch over eventually. We get there.
All right, so this is filling. Okay, so you're using JQ to get the latest release, get the download URL, and it's you just want me to pull down a binary.
Yeah, I mean, you can also do it with Golang if you have Go installed, but it's basically just a little demo service that's a couple bugs in it that will trigger and show you how the rules work.
All right, and there is Kubernetes. You know what? I may do it. We'll see how time goes, right? But the fact that I can apply the demo application to a Kubernetes cluster, we'll maybe do that as well. I am going to go with a Go approach. Just
cool.
Why not? And I'll keep my output.
Yeah, and one thing to note for the demo, it does need you to save the logs to a log file to run Preq on.
Okay. That's fine. I just want to see what I'm running first before I redirect it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We do need to update it so that it can actually print to both standard out and log to a file. What version of Go do you have? I think this was compiled with 1241, so you should be fine. Looks like it's working.
Yeah, I think Go doesn't do dash, does it? 124.3.
Look at you. Look at that.
Well, I'm on Arch, rolling distro, right? So
that's true. That's a good point.
Maybe I should have just pulled down the binary. Anyway, it's running. We've got a web server on port 8080. Now I'll write. I can't remember what your file name was, but
yeah, and actually, you want to do standard out and standard error, both to preek.log.
Okay, I should do it.
Cool.
I think. But that's going to run forever because it's a Go binary. So let's just kill that and preek. All right. Do I need the downloading Go stuff? Is that part of the process or?
No, but you do want to leave it running. The getting started guide will have you submit an API request to trigger a bug, and then we'll use Preq to detect it and show you how to work Preq.
All right, so now we're going to curl. We're going to see some things. That sounds good to me. Let's split to the right since we've got a bit more space. And yeah, we've broken the thing. So,
and it does look like only standard error or sorry, standard out went to the log. Maybe check the log to confirm, but I think standard error was not put into the log. Yeah, in the docs that you can copy and paste it there. Yeah, it's
so I need a dash E. So dash E Preq.
That's cool.
Can I put them in different files, or do you want them in the same file?
We're going to run them in the same file. Yeah.
Oh, plus. Oh. See, new shell. I'm learning. Right. Okay. So, can I do that with save? All right. I know I can do that. All right. What did I do wrong?
The copy and paste will work. You can use that. It's the tried and true greater than sign.
I know, but I want to make it work. Oh, force. All right. Okay. So I could probably just do dash O plus E. I don't know. What am I doing? F wants a file name. E wants a file. Everything wants a file name. Right.
I believe in you, David. I believe in you.
Let's just jump back to Bash because.
Wait, you can't do this in Bash? Oh, interesting. Okay. Or sorry, you can't do this in new shell. Okay, cool. There you
go. So.
Check the log.
Curl. Give me curl. There we go. And I bet that didn't work, did it?
I don't think that it did.
I just want to save the errors. Dash E path only works with dash R. Save file as a raw binary.
Oh,
let's copy and paste it. I'm not. I don't want to fade it.
So what the trick is, at least in Bash, you have to output it to the file, and then after that, put the standard error, the little standard error standard out trick at the end.
Right. Okay.
It's in the docs if you want to copy paste it.
I've done it this way, and I mean, I'm sure I could just pop open Claude and say, how do I save dash F of new shell with standard error and standard? I use Claude all day now. Like, I see if Claude code was just a shell, I would live in it. So, okay, we got what we wanted. Let's pop back over here. So we got output, we got this, and now we want to detect a problem. So the way that Preq works, and get us back on track now, right? We can take logs of our application, pipe them into Preq. We're passing in a dash O. I don't know what that is yet. And then we've got the input modifier to read from a file. And it's just going to analyze the logs and tell us what went wrong. And we're going to see output like this.
That's right.
Easy.
Yep. It's basically any time stamped line carriage return delimited data. It'll parse and run rules on. And since you haven't run it without dash V, it hasn't loaded rules yet. And so what'll probably happen, what should happen when you run it, it'll ask you and prompt you, do you want to download the latest CREs? And we can talk about what CREs are. We haven't mentioned that yet. But yeah, do this first and then see if that actually happens. And the dash O is just saying, hey, let's print it out to standard out. So the dash is the name of putting it standard out. Right, and actually, to get the updates, you do first have to do a quick authentication to get the actual. All the updates kind of come out every couple of days, and they're signed. So this allows you to download those. And maybe while you're doing that, I can talk a little bit about what CREs are. So Common Reliability Enumerations, it's a schema. You go to preq-dev/CRE on GitHub. It's a schema that defines reliability problems. So it gives you sort of a title, a severity, the mitigation, the impact, and the cause, as well as a rule to detect it. And so its main purpose in life is to codify this reliability intelligence, this knowledge of failure, and couple the detection with a mitigation so that you can start with the detection first.
Nice. So I should be saying yes to updating the rules, and that's going to pull in this community focus thing. And here's the answer. You run a command with an out plus E greater than, and then you can save it. Thanks, Claude.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Claude.
All right. I am going to run that again.
Well, it looks like it worked. So
I just want to get some shit. Oh, Oh, JQ failed. Why? Because
Oh,
there's
yeah. So you can do -q, and then it'll only get the JQ output. So -o dash, the dash is the name of the output to standard out, and so if you do that -q, yep, and then -o,
oh,
like you had before, yep. No, I'll try that. That should work.
there we go. All right. So this is now telling us that we have a demo application crashing due to environment misconfiguration. It's categorized. We've got some tags. You were the author. Not color me surprised. Impact, cause, mitigation, references. So, all right, cool.
Yeah, and the idea here is that like you often, when a problem happens, you'll end up doing your own investigation and land on some GitHub issues or some Stack Overflow or Google discussion forum. And so this is really just codifying all of that knowledge here. So you have those references available, the mitigation if it's available, and the actual rule to detect it.
So I want to understand correlation here, right? So I just ran a random binary that you provided, right? It's your demo application. When you say that this is a community understood error, reliability, whatever the vocabulary is there, the lexicon, are we saying that someone has said, okay, I have got this error here, they've came across to Preq, submitted it, and then typed in some details, or maybe it's a pull request, I don't know, we can get into that. And then this information is what comes out of it. So this is specific, not to this application, although I guess it is because the Go package is all here. But is it these two lines that cause this to be matched up with this?
Yeah, the panic line and then some data in the actual stack trace itself. But yeah, you're spot on. So the cool thing that we're trying to do with CREs is something that worked really well in security to detect problems, and that was doing sequences. So A followed by B followed by C, and correlations on those sequences. So I only want to know about A followed by B followed by C if they have the same node or IP address or whatever it is. And then negative conditions. So don't tell me about ABC if D happened. That works really well in security. Just those very high level primitives across different data types to effectively describe problems. But those were security problems. And so with Preq, you can do the same thing with these correlations and sequences and even sets. So any order. And you can do that on log data, configuration data, even time series data and some other data types, and to do correlations across those. And that's a really powerful way. Like imagine if you had some Kubernetes problem, like you're running this service in Kubernetes, and let's say this happens sometimes on startup. Well, that would be a nice opportunity to write a rule that says, "Don't tell me about this." If there's like a Kubernetes event that's telling me that this pod was just created, but if this is happening after it's been running for a while, I definitely want to know about it. So that's the cool thing about the language. And if you go to the docs, the syntax reference, there's a very big, long section that kind of describes about all of the different primitives that you can do. It definitely gets kind of complicated. The getting started guide is just a very simple example, but it's sort of bringing the sequencing and correlations and negative conditions to reliability data. That's kind of the whole point of Preq. So this is a very simple example. But you can find kind of more complicated examples. If you go to play.prequel.dev, there's some more complicated examples there on the playground. And then even in the reference too. And the playground here is going to take you to building another rule. That's kind of the getting started guide will actually walk you through building a rule. But if you just go to play.prequel.dev, so this is actually linking you to it. Just maybe type, get rid of the end part there. Perfect. So you scroll down there. Here's a real rule that's for a real problem in RabbitMQ. And if you scroll down at the bottom, you can see kind of what the conditions are looking for. It's a regular expression query for a certain pattern, and it's also got a negative condition. And the negative condition is basically this problem is RabbitMQ can sometimes the underlying Erlang process can get overloaded whenever it's processing too many persistent queues in a 3 or 4 node cluster. And it can cause this really bad outage. And it doesn't emit any metrics. It tells you something bad's going on. But it sometimes can also happen normally on a shutdown when there's a SIG term. So that's why the negative condition's there. Because when that happens, it's like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. We're actually shutting down the cluster. But when it happens on boot, it's not good because it's actually hard to detect. And so that's just kind of like a more complex example, but still relatively simple. And you can actually do nested conditions too. So you could say, all right, let me look for this problem that's happening in RabbitMQ, and then this problem that's happening in Nginx, and this problem that's happening in this Kubernetes events. Like you can kind of like do this distributed matching thing, which is kind of fun.
Nice. All right. I had to add the negate just to test that this works. So what we're saying is this error could be expected under these circumstances. So we're just going to ignore it. What is the I'm a developer, a platform engineer, SRE operator. Obviously things are going wrong every single day.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's production has errors. Do I get my logs straight onto my local machine, run them through Preq? Is there automation? Does this hook in? I can imagine there would be a really sweet path here where this hooks into tools like Sentry, where they're catching all the exceptions, and then it's just we're getting a comment from Preq going, "Oh, this is because you have done this," or whatever. What is the default modality? How do people consume this? What's the
Great question. So if you go back to the docs kind of further down after creating your own rule, there's a couple of automated runbooks that Preq supports. So you can send a Slack notification, you can create a Jira ticket, or you can run an executable, and it'll pass that Jira or that JQ, that JSON object as standard in into that executable, and you can do something automated there. So there's some automated runbooks that you can do, and then you can also set up a cron job. So if you're running this on bare metal, on your Mac OS laptop, wherever, you can do set up a cron job, and there's a capability in the tool to generate that template for you. And if you're in a Kubernetes cluster, there's a crew plugin, and we can generate a Kubernetes cron job there too. And basically the way it looks is that you specify the services that you want it to look at, or the jobs or daemon sets, whatever it is. It'll run that on a schedule, and then for anytime there's a detection, it'll take one of those automated runbook actions. And kind of the cool thing with the automated runbooks is that you see the regular expression field there. You can route different CREs to different actions using a regular expression. So that's kind of like the soup to nuts workflow is, you've got some services that you want to monitor. You want to stay up to date. Like let's say you're using PyMongo and some service, and you want to make sure that you're getting the latest PyMongo detections. You would just schedule that job for that service. Every time it runs, it's going to check for updates and use those. And then if there are any hits, it'll send those to your runbook.
All right. Nicholas in the chat has the same question. I'm going to reword it just for the way that I had it in my head, but I think it's the exact same question. Obviously, as someone who is responsible for production infrastructure, I'm not just leaving my logs in journald or Kubernetes. I am shipping them somewhere. The chances are I'm writing them to Rawkode, InfluxDB, anywhere, Elasticsearch, right? So as far as an automated way for Preq to be aware of this, are there connectors for Rawkode, Elasticsearch? How do we make this real time, or at least as close to real time as we can? Is that something that Preq supports?
Yeah, so we're a couple of things maybe to mention on this question, because it's a very good question. And maybe the really quick answer is yes, that's definitely an integration that's on the roadmap. We're going to support that. But we're also changing the paradigm a little bit here too, architecturally. So traditionally in reliability, when it comes to monitoring, you often take your data and ship it somewhere else. And there are sometimes problems with doing that. Sometimes it's a lot of data. And if you're lucky enough to have a big enough Loki cluster that your company or organization is going to pay for, that's cool. But if you have to pay for it in Datadog or somewhere else, that can get expensive and unpredictable too. Actually, that's sometimes the more surprising problem with sending your data somewhere else is that, next month, if you accidentally have some bug that generated 1 million logs a day, your chief financial officer might be calling you up the following month. And so instead of sending all of this data somewhere else, we actually bring the detections, the rules themselves, to the data. And we do that for a couple of reasons. The one is you actually, because you don't have to send this data anywhere, you get access to much more data that otherwise you would be crazy to send somewhere else, like process exit events. You'd be a crazy person to continuously collect this data just in case you need it, because it's a lot. But when you run the rule where the data exists, you don't have to send it anywhere. Now that's available to you as an input into a rule, which is really cool. So that was the main reason we did it. But the nice side effect is that you don't have to ship all of this data somewhere else. And so the architecture is set up where you can actually push this out to the edge, bring the rules where the data sits, get all of these benefits of the real-time detections on more data that's too expensive to send somewhere else. The side effect, don't have to increase your bill, Another kind of cool thing is that because you're sitting where the data sits, your automated runbooks, the actual thing that's going to take some actions, already there and can do something. Whereas if you've got the data shipped somewhere else, you now need an integration to reach back in to actually take an action. And so, sort of, where do you want to have the integration? Do you want to have the integration on the like data shipping side, where it could be expensive, or do you want to have the integration on the automated action side? And so that's kind of like the thinking there. But all that being said, absolutely, we're going to add capabilities. Just let me occasionally look at CloudWatch data. Let me look at something that's in Loki, wherever it is, and we'll match on that too. And that's kind of the cool thing with the language is that's totally supportable and definitely something we're going to add to Preq.
Okay, so you support whatever mode operators really want to go.
Exactly.
I like the idea of doing it pre-sampling because then you're getting the most value for your buck, like you said.
Exactly.
If I don't need to forward all that data onto Loki. But then another common part could just be write everything to Loki with a really short time to live of 3 hours, do the detection, and then put that into longer term storage. But with sampling, with very strict sampling. If people aren't sampling on production, you've got too much money.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we use it on our backend too. So instead of saving all the log data with FluentBit, all the time, we'll write rules for like, hey, we definitely want to know about this when it happens. Let's tell us about it, and then we'll save kind of the data around it.
Well, don't give us 10% of that story. Let's talk about the pre-production log pipeline. Like, so how are you collecting logs? How is Preq embedded into this? You're using FluentBit. Do you want to just give us the details on that? I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So we're not using FluentBit. We're literally just saving the logs to the underlying container runtime, saving it via journald to the log files in the Kubernetes cluster, and then we have a daemon set that does a couple of interesting things. One of which will monitor for all of these log files from the containers. So we'll get the containers start creation events from the runtime, and then open up a file descriptor to those logs. And then match on all the data. And one of the cool things about the rules is that we're actually not running the rules on everything all the time. So you'll see in the rule a data source. And that allows us to specify, hey, this is a rule for CRE.log.nginx. There's sort of a definition that goes behind that data source that says, all right, match on this image URL or container name or whatever it is. And so that rule will only actually compile and run in the environment if nginx is running. And so that's basically what we use for our production problems. Like actually, we just had an issue yesterday where a customer was upgrading one of our clusters, and there was an issue, and we have a detection for that job status failure, and we have a detection that fires for that and kind of saves all the data. And that's a rare event, and so we didn't have to send all of this data and store it in CloudWatch and save all of it for all time. It's just a detection that fires when we know we actually need that data.
All right. I'm curious now. Obviously, we played with this example in the playground. This is nice. We run the rule. We get this nice bit of information on the right, and we can see the hits and stuff. Now, assuming in my production environment, I'm using OpenTelemetry, I'm writing my logs to Loki, they're going out in JSON format. Is that a problem for Preq, or is it just going to swallow those up and be quite happy to parse them?
Yeah, it runs side by side just fine. It's more like a first line of defense. So we have a lot of customers and users that are, they need to save that data for compliance reasons, but they also don't want to go crawling through a mile-long dashboard when there's a problem, and would like to just, hey, if there's a new problem for Redis tomorrow that comes out, I'll get a detection for that, and I didn't have to write the monitor. Just there you go, it's there. And because that data is not getting shipped, anywhere for Preq, it's just the data is in your cluster. We're not doing anything with it. It's very cheap to do. It's very cheap to run.
Cool. I always like to test, but yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. And yeah, there's a lot of different timestamp formats that are supported in the Preq tool, and then the commercial products using the container runtime CRI format for all of the timestamps for the data.
Yeah, I'm assuming my dot's not supported, but that's fine. Cool. I like this. So I've got a few different ways I kind of want to take this now. And Nicholas in the chat says, yeah, thank you for that extended answer. That was perfect. Okay, so I can switch the size. I'm curious about the CREs. So
yeah,
I'm assuming this is the public community-driven repository where all of the CREs live and exist. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right, nice. So because I'm assuming, your product is as good as this repository. Like,
Yeah, for Preq, absolutely. Preq, this is the Preq open source tool uses the open CREs.
all right. There's an alternative version. Is this your enterprise product?
No.
No,
We
no.
have an alternative commercial version. So not all of the rules. We have a reliability research team, the Prequel reliability research team, that works with customers, open source issues, and a growing community of contributors, which has been kind of cool. I actually think we have more now contributors to the open source capability than we have people that work at Prequel, which is awesome. Actually, shout out to Nicholas because I definitely know that he's one of them. So cool to see you, Nicholas. Um, and yeah, I think the rules that you're looking at here are all of the kind of open source contributed rules that look at things like Loki, NATS issues, or some stuff here in Kafka. Growing every day. We just released this a couple of weeks ago. And then, yeah, we have a commercial product where not all of those rules do get pushed out to the open source product. Some of them have. We actually just published a blog earlier this week on some Nginx worker leaks, and so we made those rules available on the blog, and we're considering making those available in the CRE repo as well.
Okay. I'm just looking at one that was added 2 days ago. Some sort of kill for Reddit, tag, description, cause.
Yeah, one of when you're contributing to the CRE repo, one of the things that's a requirement is you have to have a reproduction for the problem. So it's not enough to go and scrape an issue somewhere and say, okay, here's some data that explains what the problem. You actually need a reproduction. And that's mainly because sometimes these things can have false positives, and so you want to be able to have a test case for, okay, here's the actual positive conditions that have to happen for this to be the problem. But when you do the reproduction, you can also see the scenarios where, okay, well, I can also see how that would be normal and fine and nothing's broken. Let's make sure we actually write the negate cases to cover the false positives.
Nice. I like this.
And we're looking for contributors too. So if you're listening and you want to get nerd sniped and have some fun, again, my background is doing vulnerability research and exploit development, and I have more fun doing this. It's fun because you're fixing stuff. You're actually making things better, and you're helping someone that you've never met somewhere that's about to have a really bad day because they're scaling core DNS and they're about to hit some n-squared scaling issue. They've never seen it before, but there's a rule for it that can help them in case that happens. So I think that world is fun to live in. We all want to be in that world, and so we're definitely looking for contributors.
Have you ever considered just taking the Stack Overflow data export and going nuts with it?
Well, it sounds like a crazy idea, and it is, and it's definitely something we still actually do think about. Definitely not doing it now, but we are looking at different ways in which we can scale up the research. Because there's a lot of misconfiguration issues, node problems in open source software, anti-patterns. There's a lot, and so that's why we're excited about building the community, because we can't do it alone. And again, this is something the security industry realized 20 years ago. You cannot solve this problem alone. You have to find tools and ways to share this knowledge at machine speed. And that's, I think, why we get excited about common reliability enumerations.
Nice. All right. I think I understand the project. I understand how it works. I understand how to contribute. I see the value. I think we're doing well so far. So
awesome.
The fact that anyone watching this should hopefully start contributing any of their outages and errors as CREs. I keep trying to say CVEs, but I'm like, no, don't say that. That's the other one, the security one. This is cool. Is there anything we haven't covered yet before I kind of start poking around and coming up with silly ideas?
No, I mean, I think that's it. Again, we're really excited about it. Come star the repos, come join us in Slack. We're looking for contributors. We're very passionate about making this world exist. We don't want to start with the investigation. We want to start with the detection. Let's do that. We want that world to be true. So come hang out if you like that world and you want to live in that world, because we do too.
All right. Well, let's jump back to the CLI then. So we've got this thing here. Now, when I ran it the first time, I did have to log in, and I got some sort of snapshot of that repository stored locally with the rules. How do I keep this up to date? Does it do that automatically? Is it something I should trigger on a cron job? How do I make sure I have the latest CREs for running against my log data?
Yeah, good question. So it's an automatic update. You don't have to schedule anything. It'll do a check in two different ways. The first check is just like a UDP packet with like a latency timeout of 100 milliseconds. Like, hey, is there a new version available? If so, let's tell someone they can download it. And then every couple of days, there's like a more guaranteed TCP check. It's like, hey, is there a new update available? We're pushing out updates from the community about 2 or 3 times a week. It'll probably stay at that pace for a while. So really, you don't have to do anything. Every time you run it, like you did earlier, actually, when you started it out, you actually just ran it to look for that problem. It'll do that quick update, install it, and then finish doing the thing you asked it to do, and it does it very fast. And that's why we did the UDP check. We wanted that update check to be as fast as possible. And I think we're averaging, like, at least in the US, I'm not sure about Scotland. In the US, it's for around 40 milliseconds for that check. I'm actually curious what your latency was for the UDP packet. We'll have to find out.
Nice. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I'm also on. My office is a listed building, so I'm not allowed fiber, even though I can see the fiber point on the ground outside, but they can't drill in my building. It's very annoying. So I have to use 5G.
It looks fast.
Yeah, I use 5G, and it's okay. It has its good days and its bad days.
Yeah,
I'm pretty cool.
My co-founder's latency, Linda's listening right now, so I'm very excited to say that his latency for DNS lookups is like 600 milliseconds, and I don't know how he survives a human in his house. I don't know how you do it, Lyndon. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Hard pass on that one for sure. All right, maybe you can talk. In fact, let me push this back to big face mode. There we go. So you've got a commercial product, right? You're trying to make this something that is open source and available to anyone. There is a community contributing thing, but of course, open source has to be sustainable, right? This is something that people often forget, and they go, closed source, done. Actually, off my audio interface, but how do you build a business around this? How do you make sure that the open source project has a long shelf life that people can trust and adopt? Because that's obviously going to be an important part of your mission, which means you have to have a successful company behind it. So maybe you could go into that in a bit more detail for us.
Yeah, a really good question. So the way we think about it is the schema for common reliability enumerations. It is really important for that to be open. Because if you want to have a community of practitioners, engineers, customer support, people using, contributing, growing these rules, it's really important that it be open. So that's why we decided to make it Apache 2. And the Preq tool itself actually uses a lot of the it's basically the same compiler. So if you go to the Prequel-compiler in the GitHub repo, that's the same thing that's in the commercial product. But there are some key differences. And the key differences are on the types of data that you can run the rules on. And that's kind of how we make this balance, kind of to your question. For the open source tool, it will work on log data and configuration data. For the commercial product, we look at Kubernetes events, process events, and time series data, open telemetry data, all of the support for like running it on ECS or some kind of like CloudWatch based data. Those data sources will probably only live in the commercial product. And another key difference between the open source product and the commercial product is around correlations. So the open source product is kind of a one data source at a time. If you want to look at this one service for problems with this one service, it's great for that. But if you really want to look at, hey, I need to know when my backend service is having a bunch of GraphQL 500s and it's causing my user-facing Nginx service to generate 500s to the users on the API, like in correlating those two things at the same time, that's where the commercial product and the language works really well for those correlations. But you can't do that in Preq. And that's really it. That's the key difference. But it's the same code. It's like the compiler that we're using, the commercial product, is actually that compiler code that's in the open source version. And we're not going to like have two different versions. We're actually using the same thing. So that's kind of how we keep it going and make it easy for us to support the commercial product, because it's the same code base. And using that data source and correlation distinction kind of line kind of makes it easy to continue supporting the open source version, but have a lot of really cool value in the enterprise product.
Okay. And if I remember correctly from earlier on, right, you also said there's the open source CREs, but you maintain your own proprietary database of CREs. How do you make that decision then when your team come across something? Should it live in the proprietary one? Should it live in the open source one? And do you have any sort of pledge to the community that things that go into the proprietary one after 12 months will make their way down to like open source. Like, how do you build around this and give people, because the better the open source repository is, the better the product is, and hopefully that leads to more adoption of the commercial product.
Yeah,
But of
absolutely.
course, this is a tightrope that a lot of open source companies have to tread on carefully. So
Yeah, it's actually what's kind of cool about drawing the line on correlations is that if you can detect the problem entirely within that one data source, then it probably should just be an open source rule.
yeah,
And most rules, I think, are going to be shaped like that. Now, when it comes to, hey, this is actually kind of a really hard thing to detect because you need to look at 4 different things happening at once. And you need to also kind of like reduce some false positives here. That's where correlations kind of are really important. And that's only going to be something that would be available in the commercial rules for the commercial product. And so I think that's kind of how we're thinking about it. But I think we're honestly, we're excited to see where the community takes us. And as we get more contributors and kind of more users on Preq and CREs, like we're listening to what people need. And so I don't think we actually have a hard and fast rule. And this is something, during my time at Elastic working with open source, we would very often try to brainstorm, okay, what's the rule, the principle that we're going to use to make the same decision? And we tried many times to come up with a rule, and it never worked because every situation was unique. So I think we don't have really a hard, fast rule. It's really just let's go where customers and users of the open source projects see value and need value, and that's what we're going to do.
okay, awesome. And I'm assuming Preq, the open source CLI that you said is the basis for the commercial product and obviously the open source one. If people want to contribute to that, is that something that is approachable? How do they get started? Like, because I'm assuming this is a tool. I think that the appeal, right, of why I want to use this is night and day. That's the wrong thing. What am I trying to say? It's universal. Everybody wants to use it. I can imagine, like, no one would say, "No, I'm not going to use that." Right? It's right there. Why would you not use it? How do people get contributing to the open source project if that's what they want to do? Right? You mentioned there's the compiler, there's the Preq CLI, there's obviously the CREs. Right? Let's put them to the side because those, I think, are a completely different construct to contributing code. How do people do that?
So the all of our code base is in Go. So that's kind of the first question: is are you comfortable in Go? And if not, it is a little bit harder to contribute to the actual the code base itself. But if you do know Go, we want to be as approachable as possible. In fact, we were actually just talking with someone on Monday that was like, "Hey, your contributing docs talk about how you want to open up an issue and have a discussion first," and that made me feel like you weren't wanting to accept PRs because you would just kind of go off and have this conversation. Nothing would actually ever happen. We're like, oh, that's a bug in our docs, and we're going to fix that because we want as many contributors as possible. We want as many ideas as possible, and so we want it to be as easy as possible to contribute. And so I think if you know Go, come hang out with us, join our Slack. But even if you don't, like you just said earlier, you don't need to know Go to contribute CREs. The language is very, very simple. It's just YAML, and it's like string pattern matching and regular expressions. You can actually do JQ queries in that too, but it's very easy to write. And so, yeah, I think we're welcoming contributors on both the actual code base itself, but also CREs.
Nice. All right. I mean, I was asking also for slightly selfish reasons because I know Go. I think I could probably contribute
Yes,
a different idea.
we're doing
I
it.
mean, my
Yes.
initial thought was, I'm not a big fan of the piping the logs through and stuff like that. Like, what if Preq could have like a run command that just ran the thing for me and grabbed the logs? Like, I think that would be an interesting approach. But
Oh,
then
it
that's a wrap.
actually that is built into the tools. We kind of didn't get into it, but you can specify data sources. You can say, all right, cre.log.nginx is at this file path. And then that's just a YAML file. And so you can run Preq and you can put one file path or many, you can put it in a priority order. So it'll do that too. If you want to run this on a more consistent basis, you can define all those data sources in the file. You don't have to pipe via standard in. Standard in is kind of just a very fast way to like see how it works. But yeah, if you're running it on a more regular basis, kind of in production, you'd be using the data source file.
Nice. Okay, I'll definitely be taking a look at that then. All right, let's go with one more question. Like, what is your roadmap? So, what are you looking to do with Preq over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, anything like that? How far ahead have you planned?
Yeah. So I'll answer it from both the context of Preq and then the commercial product Prequel. And so for Preq, we're really focused on the CRE library and bringing in more contributors and actually actively reaching out to experts in Kafka community and RabbitMQ, Nginx, Redis, Postgres, and really just, hey, what are some of the problems that you've been running across? Let's start codifying that intelligence so that everyone can benefit from your knowledge. And so our roadmap for Preq and the open source tool is primarily focused on growing that community and then trying to find features that would unlock its usage. So this week we actually just added the automated runbooks because we had someone last week tell us like, hey, I would like to have some automation here to like actually have it do something when a specific rule is fired. And so for the open source project, it's primarily focused on growing the contributors for rules and adding features that would make it even easier to use and sort of grow adoption. Then the commercial product, it's really all about focusing on data sources. And so one of the features that we're really excited about is adding time series data so that you can do these correlations across logs, configuration data, Kubernetes events, and some event that's generated from a rule on time series data. I think that's kind of something that maybe you'd be kind of a crazy person to think is feasible to do, kind of like doing these correlations across like a bunch of time series data and log data. And I think that's like doing sequences and correlations across all of those different data types is really, really powerful. And so that's one of the things that we're really focused on right now, as well as, again, just growing the commercial rule library there as well. So that's kind of at a high level for Preq and the commercial product, what we're focused on for the next year. And then maybe one other thing to talk about from the commercial product standpoint, you were using Claude in your command line there. I think one of the really powerful ways to leverage AI and LLMs is, at least in the commercial product, in two ways. One is in explaining what happened. So the cool thing about these rules is it builds this tree of kind of things that were matched across different data sources and has specific hits like you saw on the playground, like actually what fired. So with all of that data, like what are these entities, these data sources, what are the matches, and what was the rule actually trying to do? And like the rule itself describes the problem, the mitigation. AI is really good at like summarizing this in a story, almost like a notebook. This is okay. Here's what happened. First, this log data right here, this log match. This is what this means. Then this time series metric, kind of exploded. These rules really do. It's like really good scaffolding for upon which an LLM can kind of summarize for someone like a story. Like tell me what happened instead of like choosing my own adventure through the data. It's awesome to have like an explanation on top of that, a really simple one. And then the other one is like if you've ever used Cursor for like AI autocomplete, like rule creation is another really cool opportunity to leverage AI in the product, and that's another thing that we're working on this year.
Awesome, nice. Yeah, I mean, you're right about the model stuff. Like, people are always asking which model is better between like the OpenAI stuff, the Claude stuff. There's the Mistral models, there's Gemini. I mean, these models are only as good as the curation of the data that they're trained on.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to what you're building with the CREs and that open source collective knowledge, the library of problems that happen with applications, the version numbers, and then it's all that extra metadata that you're providing, the impact, the analysis, and all
Exactly.
that is gold dust for models to ingest and help you understand production infrastructure. So that I think is a no-brainer. Like I see a very positive AI tie-in with what you're building with the CRE model and the open sourceness of that and the collective knowledge. I think that's really powerful, and that's only going to get better over time, right? Give that another 6 months, another 2 years, and that repository is going to be huge and just have so much more information. So that's a very exciting thing. Awesome. That was great. Aman in the chat saying that was a great session as well. I'm glad that was helpful. I hope you do go and contribute to the project. And now is the time for sure. There's lots of good things on the roadmap, and a noble cause as well. Any last words for me, Tony, or the audience before we wrap this up?
Come give us a star. It helps us out. It's shameless plug, but like, please, it actually does help. So go to GitHub, prequel-dev preek and give it a star. We're definitely looking for contributors, but honestly, like I think we're kind of crazy people because we're a little obsessed with trying to make this world exist, and we're just really looking for like-minded people that want to contribute and help, and come join us in community Slack we'll do anything and everything to help you get started. And like David, I'm gonna reach out and like don't let me discourage you that we already had that feature. We'll find something else. You can contribute. We're gonna make it happen. But thank you for your time. This was great.
I mean, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I actually spent 2 years working at InfluxDB. So time series data and correlations.
I saw.
Yeah, I understand how valuable it is when you can take a series of data and measure the occurrences of something over not just seconds, days, but months and years, understanding seasonality in the data. All of this contributes to reliability in the long haul. And I think you're on the right path. The fact that you're looking into how to do these advanced correlations, I think will be invaluable to the community and to your customers in the long run as well. So stick on that. And if I can help in any way, I would love to chat and dive more. But for today, I think we've covered a lot. It's a really cool project. And again, it's not easy to have an open source company and make it sustainable. So I wish you all the best of luck as a noble mission, and to everyone watching, contribute, check it out, give them that star, and hopefully your reliability will be improved. So with that, I will say goodbye. Thank you so much for your time, Tony. We'll speak soon. And to everyone watching, have a great day.
Thank you, David.
Adios.
That's a wrap on Rawkode Academy. Tony showed us how Preq sets his system free. Thanks for joining us and learning something new. Now you know what Preq can do for you. Preq. Now your systems can survive. Thanks for all your questions here. See you next time. Give a check. To star us, please join our community with these. Share the knowledge.